Well, I'm using the inverse classroom or the flipped classroom style and combining that with Collaborate, which allows me to do audio lectures and post them on Angel so the students can watch the lectures at home at their convenience. And then when we all gather for our class time on Collaborate, hopefully they've already read the material, they've looked at the PowerPoint presentation I have posted for them, and they've listened to the lecture, which goes along with that PowerPoint presentation. So that when we get on to Collaborate all together, we actually can have a discussion rather than having a lecture. Doesn't always work out that way, but at least they have the opportunity to do that. And so the concept is referred to as an inverse classroom or a reverse classroom because they've got all the material beforehand, if they would just take advantage of that. We also were trying to address kind of a universal design in that we've got the material in outline form, so printed form. We've got the material available to them audibly so they can listen to it. And you know, that's how we're trying to approach it. Trying to give the students a little bit more responsibility for being informed when they come to class. And again, having a discussion with them rather than trying to lecture. So this is kind of what my Angel page looks like for one chapter that we're covering in the book. So I've got, again, notes that are available for the students up here. I've got the PowerPoint presentation, and I speak with the PowerPoint presentation down here with the audio lecture. What I've been doing most recently is I have a PowerPoint that I will put up in Collaborate just to kind of keep me on track with the things I want to discuss from the previous audible lecture. And we'll call on students, of course, and ask them to, from their information that they gleaned from the lecture, to answer these different questions. And what I'm finding is the students are very embarrassed that they're being called upon and they may not know the answer. So my latest thing is I've got my PowerPoint that I use for Collaborate to keep me on track available to them before the PowerPoint. Oh, sorry. So that they can look at the questions I'm going to be asking, the discussions that we're going to have prior to actually getting online. And so that seems to help a little bit. I'm getting a few more people to volunteer with answers than were previously volunteering, and a different set of people. So that I think is very valuable. So after we have our chat session, I'll put a recording of the chat session up online, so again they can go back and review it if they would like to do that. And then the second segment down here is just the second lecture for this particular chapter. So a couple of things you can do with Collaborate. Have y'all used Collaborate very much?
Not very much.
Yeah, I really like it because it allows us the opportunity to have the student go in and actually take the pen and draw on the whiteboard, or to raise their hand and answer audibly questions that we ask them. So it's not so much really texting and typing, although a lot of that goes on down here in the chat box. I have a little bit of difficulty kind of coordinating my eye to look at the chat and then listen to the audio and look at the whiteboard. So I prefer that they raise their hand and they actually ask questions. So one of the things that, I don't have my PowerPoint loaded, but one of the things that we can do is I set it up so that the students will raise their hand when they enter the classroom, and that way I know when they actually come in. Well, they also raise their hand to ask questions or answer questions, and that's how they can volunteer. And so that's the way that I can identify those who really want to participate versus those who are kind of hanging back. The other thing I do is I will go in and I will have polling set up so that the students, even those who are not really participating or volunteering, they still have a responsibility to pay attention because they have to answer a question with an A, B, C, or D format. And that way I can see that all the questions are actually sitting in front of the computer. I'm sorry, all the students are actually sitting in front of the computer and paying attention to what's going on. They can, let's see what else I've got them set up for. So this is where they would select their A, B, C, or D, and once they do that, then I can publish the results onto the whiteboard, and they can see how the majority of the class answered as compared to where they answered themselves.
And how do you track that? How do you know? I mean,
Well, if I have others who are participating, they'll be identified here in the participants window, and their response will show up right beside their name.
okay.
Yeah. I also, during the course of the discussion, will ask them to show me a smiley face if you agree, or a frown if you have any questions, or that kind of thing. Again, just to be sure that they're all actually sitting in front of the computer and paying attention.
Yeah, I logged on and then left.
Yeah. And it does happen, I'll have to say.
So, I'm sorry, Sandra, what is the incentive? I mean, I guess I'm a little concerned that the students who aren't prepared ahead of time just wouldn't show up for this discussion part, so you'd end up having sort of this, the bottom of the group really gets to the bottom. Do they have grade for participation?
They do.
There's a quiz, there's a grade for
Yes, and it's
lab
not,
grade. Yeah.
it's not just for attendance, but it's for attendance and active participation. And in my syllabus, I spell out what that means. So they're aware that they have to not only sign in, but they have to be there and be paying attention, answer questions.
Can they see those responses that you can see when they send you some kind of a response there? Those choices, can they see other people's responses so they could wait and then?
You can set it up not to make that visible to other students, or you could have it visible if you want, for whatever reason. I usually do not. But then I will go in after everybody responded and I'll publish the results to a whiteboard. And then they don't see what the individual responded, but they'll see the class as a whole, how many answered each option. Yeah. So it works out pretty good as long as the internet is working and their connections are good and they don't get booted out. Yeah. I've had some students who say they really appreciate the opportunity to do online instruction. And of course, others who say they don't like it at all. They want to see me face to face and just have me talk.
Do you put the video on it yourself? Sometimes you can do that, I think.
I have not used, I do record them. Is that what you mean?
Well, I think you can have you, as you're talking,
Yes.
you can show your face.
I don't do that.
And sometimes that's helpful. Well, because then it is, you're not disembodied, at least, your voice is with your face. And I think that's easier sometimes.
Yeah, if your students want to see your face, then give it to them.
Well, the other possibility is letting them show their faces. And I'm a little wary of that. So you never know what they'll show dressed in. So I don't have that option. And I have thought about, doing the video thing, but I've also read opinions that just having the disembodied voice really kind of is distracting from the other things that are going on in the presentation. So that, and because video puts on another 20 pounds at least. I go through that. Yeah. So it seems to work out pretty well, I think.
So how many generally participate?
Well, I have a class of 24 students, and the active participation usually is about half of them. If I have a question that I put up and nobody's volunteering to respond to, I tell them, be ready, because I'll ask whoever I want to, yeah. And so that puts them a little bit on edge, but it makes them attentive. And it makes those who are willing to volunteer a little bit more, because they don't want to put their classmates on the spot, I guess. Yeah. But if I don't get a volunteer, I'll call on somebody and they're aware of that. So questions?
I think there's a way also to randomly generate who you call on, or maybe that confusing that with another product.
I've not used that. I believe there is, because I think Tracy's used that, but I just haven't.
And so Sandra, you taught both ways, of course. Do you have a feeling for this works just as well as traditional face-to-face, or it depends on the student, or it doesn't work as well, but it's certainly not flexible? Do you have comments on that?
I do. I'm also one of those who prefer to have a class in front of me. just because I can gauge a little bit more, their emotions that are affiliated with the discussion or lecture. So I am one of those who likes to have everything face-to-face. The situation that I came into when I came here was that all of the students weren't in front of me anyway, because we were using ITV. And ITV had a unique set of challenges. It really was not a very good option for classrooms. So I think this is better than ITV. I think personally face-to-face is better than.
And so as far as, less just like in general, like the graduation rate or the quality of their knowledge bases, it seems to be about the same?
About the same. Our students do feel very empowered since we're online to email. And I have discussion boards that are open every week, including the content that's been presented for that week or other items that I find interesting that I put up for them. So they have discussion board, they have email, they have phone, they know where I am. So they certainly can get in touch with me, and I encourage them to do that whenever they have questions, or to write the questions down and present them for the class during our chat sessions. So they can actually take a pen, and they can draw with their pen on the whiteboard. So I'll get them to identify pathology for me, or show where the fracture is, or that kind of thing. I don't really like for them to post on the whiteboard, because I've had students do that as well. They'll go on Google while I'm talking, and they'll find a picture and they'll post it on my whiteboard. So I don't like that, and I don't give them that opportunity. But I will have them take the pen and draw. They can do text boxes on the whiteboard. I do the polling with them as a whole, and then I'll do individuals, ask them questions.
So for example, if you post a radiograph and you ask them to find an artifact in it or something like that, let's say you've got 12 different responses, how do you show or compare 12 different responses?
I have to ask just one individual to show us that artifact. Yeah.
And then when they post on the whiteboard, they can see it too.
Everybody
can see it.
Yeah.
I get confused as to what I can see versus what they can see. It's hard for me to visualize
Do they answer
that their views are different.
They do. They talk quite frequently with audio. I prefer them to do audio rather than texting, because I want to hear them.
Yeah, and it's so much more like a real class.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
But there's, the power of that back channel also.
Yeah.
That back channel chat is a very powerful tool. It is difficult for a single instructor to watch all that. But if there's, and they can do that between students also. So that's another way to encourage discussion offline, and maybe they can collaborate and come back with things.
So you can allow them to separate out into different
Right.
groups and have those kinds of conversations. What I find though is that in my hour and a half I have with them,
Right, that's a lot.
it's a lot of time apart. So I don't really do that very much, although a lot of others do use the breakout sessions.
Cool.
So that's
We good?
More to come.
Thanks, Sandra.
You're welcome.